Emily Grant remembered the night everything in her life snapped. She had been sitting across the dining table from her father in their Boston home, the warm light from the chandelier falling across his stiff shoulders. Mr. Grant didn't flinch when he said the words that changed her life. "Your brother deserves it. The house, the cash, the entire company. Jason is the rightful one." Emily stared at him, stunned. She had spent 15 years holding that construction company together, late nights, early mornings, and sacrifices no one ever saw. "That I built half of what you're handing him," she whispered. But he didn't even blink. Her mother looked at her plate, refusing to meet her eyes. Jason smirked from the other end of the table like he had already won. Emily stood up, grabbed her car keys, and said quietly, "Good luck." She walked out with nothing but her car and her pride. 2 years later, when her phone buzzed one cold Chicago morning, she almost ignored it. But the preview line froze her. "Mortgage is due. Can we talk?" It was from her mother. Emily laughed, short, sharp, unbelieving. Before she could react, another message appeared. "Please. It's important." That one wasn't funny at all. She felt something old stirring in her chest. Something like warning. Something like power. Emily wiped her hands on her jeans, leaned back in her chair, and whispered to herself, "Whatever they're hiding, it has my name written all over it." Her phone buzzed again, but she didn't open it. Not yet. For the first time in her life, they needed her. And that changed everything. Emily grew up in a quiet suburb outside Boston in a colonial-style home her grandfather built with his own hands. The house always smelled like sawdust and lemon polish, the kind of scent that made strangers say, "What a hard-working American family." But inside those walls, a different truth lived. Every decision, every celebration, every sacrifice revolved around Jason, the youngest and only son. Emily learned that truth before she learned multiplication. When she was 12, their father had the company crew build a miniature construction fort for Jason's 5th birthday. It had real shingles, tiny windows, even a working light. That same year, Emily received a bookstore gift card and a grocery store cake. Nothing was said, but the lesson was loud. Jason mattered more. Her mother always brushed it off. "Your father has traditional values," she would say softly, as if that made everything okay. But those values followed Emily into middle school, high school, college, everywhere. While Jason scraped through classes and partied, Emily studied hard, led school clubs, and dreamed of helping run the family business someday. When she earned her degrees in business management and construction management, she thought her father would finally see her. But Jason, after switching majors 3 times, was given a corner office, a fancy title, and a brand new company car he didn't know how to maintain. Emily worked herself to the bone from the ground up, estimating, scheduling, managing crews, and learning every name in every department. She kept hoping results would speak for themselves. But each time she succeeded, her father looked at Jason and said, "That's how the Grant men get things done." It stung every time. But she held on, believing loyalty could fix anything. He was wrong. The medical complex project was the moment Emily thought her father might finally acknowledge her work. The project had fallen dangerously behind schedule, and just when the pressure became unbearable, Jason announced he was taking a well-deserved vacation. He bragged about his trip all the way to the airport, leaving Emily with a sinking feeling and a half-collapsing project. She stepped in without being asked. For 6 exhausting weeks she lived on the job site, wearing a hard hat from sunrise to sunset. She reorganized the crews, renegotiated subcontractor schedules, and somehow pulled the entire project together. They finished 2 days early. When the client shook Emily's hand and said, "It wouldn't have happened without you," hope bloomed in her chest. Her father had walked over just in time to hear it. He nodded, proud but not at her. "The Grant men know how to deliver," he said, clapping Jason on the back even though Jason had been gone the entire time. Emily swallowed the sting like she had swallowed so many others. Maybe next time, she told herself. Maybe he'll see me next time. But she didn't know that the night everything broke was already on the way. A week later, her mother invited her to a family dinner. Important announcement. Emily arrived early, carrying her father's favorite scotch, heart fluttering with hope. Maybe he would finally make her partner. Maybe he'd give her the recognition she had earned. Instead, she watched her father lift his glass, smile at Jason, and say he was transferring the company, the family house, and the family investments to the rightful heir. Emily blinked, frozen. Rightful? she whispered. Her father didn't hesitate. Jason deserves it, he repeated. That night, Emily realized love wasn't enough to keep you where you're not valued. Emily spent the night packing the few belongings she cared about into her car. Her hands shook as she placed her grandfather's old construction photo in the passenger seat. She whispered, "I'm sorry, Grandpa. I tried." At dawn, she drove straight to the airport and bought the next flight to Chicago. No plan, no job, no apartment, just escape. Chicago didn't welcome her gently, but it welcomed her honestly. No eyes watching her every move. No history or shadows. No Jason. She rented a tiny furnished studio with thin walls and a view of an alley, but it felt like freedom. She hung the photo of her grandfather beside her bed like a compass. Rebuilding, not running, she reminded herself each morning. Starting her consulting business was harder than any project she had worked on in Boston. She walked into construction sites with borrowed boots, introduced herself to developers who had never heard her name, and sent dozens of proposals that went unread. Some nights she cried. Some nights she worked until sunrise. But slowly, very slowly, people noticed. A stressed project manager hired her to fix a failing renovation. Emily saved it. Another client referred her. Then another. Within a year, she had steady clients and 2 part-time assistants, both women who had been overlooked in their last jobs. People like us build differently, Emily would tell them. We build to last. For the first time, she wasn't fighting for a seat at the table. She was building her own table. And then, the emails from Boston began. At first she ignored them. But each one carried the same quiet warning. Something in her family's world was collapsing. The first message came from Mrs. Neal, their elderly neighbor. She wrote that the Grant house looked abandoned. The lawn is overgrown, she typed. The shutters are peeling. I've never seen it look like this. Emily stared at the message for a long moment before closing it. She didn't respond. She didn't want to care. But a month later another email came. This one from Mr. Walker, the head estimator who had worked alongside her father for decades. Emily, I resigned today. Jason fired Dolores and Jim. Said they were too expensive. I thought you should know before things get worse. Emily's fingers hovered over the delete key. Her stomach twisted, but she pressed delete anyway. She had left that world. It wasn't her job to save it anymore. But the updates kept coming. A former project manager emailed about contracts falling apart. A subcontractor warned of delayed payments. A developer said the company might be dropped from a major project because of quality issues. Each email chipped away at the image of the company she once loved. Each one whispered the same truth. Jason was sinking the ship. Still, Emily stayed silent. Then one night, a text from an unknown number arrived, a screenshot of 2 former employees discussing unpaid wages and the possibility that the company might fold. Under it, a single sentence: you should call your parents. Emily didn't call. She sat in her dim Chicago office, city lights glimmering through the glass, and she finally admitted something she'd been avoiding. The collapse she once feared was already happening. And for the first time in years she felt something unexpected flicker inside her. Leverage. The breaking point arrived quietly. It was a normal Tuesday morning in Emily's Chicago office. She had just opened a set of material schedules when her phone buzzed once on her desk. She almost ignored it until she saw the preview. Mortgage is due. Can we talk? It was from her mother. Emily blinked, confused. The family home had been fully paid off for years. She stared at the screen, a slow heat rising under her skin. Before she could respond, she typed 3 words that came from years of buried pain. Ask your heir. She hit send without hesitation. For the first time in her life, she didn't soften the truth. Her phone buzzed again almost instantly. Emily, please don't be like this. We're in trouble. Your father won't admit it, but the company. Emily put her phone face down and tried to continue working, but her mind kept circling back. A mortgage meant desperation. A mortgage meant they had leveraged the one asset they had once valued more than her. And if they were reaching out to the daughter they cast aside, it meant things were worse than anyone had admitted. At 6:12 p.m. as she packed up her laptop, another notification lit up her screen. This time from her father. Call me. It's urgent. Emily froze. She hadn't heard his voice in nearly 2 years. She let the phone ring out. Then a voicemail arrived. Against her better judgment she listened. His voice was thin, tired, nothing like the booming confidence she grew up fearing. Emily, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But the company is facing challenges. We're running out of options. He paused, then lowered his voice. We need your help. Emily pressed the phone to her chest, her heartbeat steady. For the first time ever, he needed her more than she needed him. That night, Emily called him back. Not out of love, not out of duty, out of clarity. When he answered, his voice cracked. Emily. She didn't let emotion lead. Before we go any further, she said calmly, I want everything on the table. Payments, contracts, loans, delays, everything. If you want my help, I need to see the truth. There was a long exhale on the other end, a sound she had never heard from her father. Come home, he said quietly. We'll show you everything. Emily didn't respond to the word home. That house stopped being home the night he handed her life's work to Jason. Still, she booked a flight for Friday. 2 days later, she stepped off the plane into Boston's icy air. The cold bit at her face, but she didn't flinch. She wasn't the girl they once overlooked. She was a woman who had built herself from the ground up. She rented a car at the airport and drove the familiar route through the suburbs. The closer she got, the heavier her chest felt, old memories crashing into her like waves. Her mother's Sunday roast. The creak of the staircase she wasn't allowed to run on. Her father's booming praise for Jason every time he did something as simple as breathing. But nothing prepared her for the sight of the house. The lawn was brown and patchy. The shutters were chipped. The driveway was cracked. For the first time in her life, the Grant house looked defeated, like the people inside. She parked, grabbed her bag and walked to the door. It wasn't even locked. That tiny detail told her everything. She stepped inside, her breath catching when she saw the living room. Bills, loan statements, notices, red warning stamps. It looked less like a home and more like a crime scene of financial collapse. Her mother sat on the couch wringing her hands, her eyes red and tired. Her father paced behind her with slumped shoulders, a man who had aged 10 years in two. And Jason, tanned, relaxed, scrolling on his phone, looked like he had only shown up because someone forced him. Emily stood in the doorway until her mother finally whispered, Emily, honey, don't. Not yet, Emily said firmly. Her father stopped pacing. Thank you for coming, he said, voice rough. Things escalated faster than we expected. Emily set her bag down and walked straight to the table piled high with documents. She flipped through them quickly, unpaid invoices, breached contracts, late penalties. You mortgaged the house? She asked quietly. Her father swallowed hard. The company needed cash flow. It was temporary. Emily lifted a notice stamped in bold red. Is that what you told the bank? They don't seem to agree. Jason finally looked up, irritated. Can we not do this right now? Dad said you're here to help, not lecture. Emily turned her head slowly. You think this is a lecture? She held up a stack of expense reports. Tell me, Jason, did you think the company wouldn't notice dozens of personal trips billed as business expenses? The boat, the Florida condo, the spa weekends. Jason rolled his eyes. I was building relationships. That's what a CO does. You weren't a CO, Emily replied. You were a child handed a loaded weapon. Her father cleared his throat. Emily. No, she said sharply. We're not softening this. Her mother closed her eyes like she was bracing for impact. Emily opened another folder, loan statements Jason signed without understanding the repayment terms. These didn't just drain the company. They drained your retirement. They jeopardized 47 employees' livelihoods. And when everything collapsed, you called me. Jason's jaw tightened. Emily's voice stayed calm. Because suddenly the daughter who didn't deserve it became useful. Her father finally sat down, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily, I know what I said before. I regret. You don't get to apologize yet, she cut in. We're not done. Jason stood, arms crossed, face flushed. You always think you're perfect, he snapped. You don't know what it's like to run a company. Emily laughed, a short, sharp sound. Jason, I ran that company for 15 years. You just took the credit. Silence fell over the room. Emily pulled out a chair and sat, folding her hands on the table. Let's get to why I'm actually here, she said. I assume you didn't call me just to confess mistakes. Her father exhaled heavily. We need a restructuring plan. The bank is threatening legal action. Clients are leaving. If you could return in a leadership role so, CFO, maybe we can stabilize things. No, Emily said immediately. Her mother blinked. Sweetheart. No, Emily repeated. I'm not coming back as an employee. I'm not risking my name and reputation while Jason keeps a title he never earned. Jason scoffed loudly. Excuse me. Be quiet, Emily said without raising her voice. The room shifted. The authority in her tone was not the Emily they remembered. Her father's voice trembled. Then, what do you want? Emily leaned back. This was the moment she had been walking toward for years. I want controlling interest, she said. Majority ownership. Full decision-making authority, financial, operational, strategic. Jason exploded. Absolutely not. Emily raised an eyebrow. The bank owns more of this company than you do, Jason. Maybe you should sit down before you embarrass yourself further. Her father rubbed his forehead. Emily, majority ownership is a big ask. So is rescuing a sinking ship, she replied. But I'm the only one in this room who has done it before. Her mother's voice cracked. But the company, it's been in the family for generations. It still will be, Emily said. Just under someone who can actually keep it alive. Jason shook his head violently. Dad, you can't let her steal everything. She left. She abandoned us. That struck a nerve, but not for the reason he expected. Emily looked at him, calm and steady. I didn't abandon anyone, she said. I was pushed out. The night Dad told me I didn't deserve what I built, I realized staying would cost me more than leaving ever could. Her father's face crumpled with shame, but she continued. Now you want me back. You need me back. But if you want my expertise, my name, my integrity, then it comes with clear terms. Her father swallowed. Terms. She counted them off on her fingers. 1. Majority ownership. 2. Jason steps down from any financial or operational authority. 3. I choose the leadership team. 4. Complete transparency, every contract, every bill, every payment. 5. She paused. You do not interfere. Not once. Understood. Jason slammed his hand on the table. You're ruining everything. No, Emily said calmly. I'm saving it. Something you were never willing to do. Her mother covered her mouth. Her father stared at the table, his hands trembling. Jason paced the room like a trapped animal. Finally, her father whispered, and if we say no? Emily didn't flinch. Then you lose the house. The company. The employees who trust you. And I walk away for good. A long, shaking silence filled the room. Then her father picked up a pen with unsteady fingers. Her mother closed her eyes, relief or regret. Emily couldn't tell. When the pen slid toward Jason, he hesitated, eyes full of fear and rage. This isn't fair, he muttered. Neither were the last 15 years, Emily replied. Jason signed. And with 3 signatures, the power that had been denied to Emily her entire life shifted into her hands quietly, permanently, undeniably. Signing the papers was only the beginning. The next morning, Emily arrived at the company's Boston office before sunrise. The parking lot, once full of trucks and crew vans, looked almost deserted. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy, quiet, workers glancing up with cautious hope as she walked through the door. She headed straight to the conference room, where she had asked the remaining staff to meet. When they gathered, some stiff, some nervous, Emily stood at the head of the table. Good morning, she said softly, and thank you for being here. I know things have been difficult. Martin, now simply Mr. Walker, again sat nearest to her. His voice cracked when he said, It's good to see you, Emily. She nodded. I'm here because this company deserves better than what it has been given. And so do all of you. Head slowly lifted. Hope flickered in tired eyes. Then she addressed the truth everyone felt but feared to speak. Bad decisions were made. Money was misused. People were mistreated. That ends today. She opened her notebook. First step, transparency. Every contract, every charge, every overdue payment, will review them together. Second, fairness. Anyone who is pushed out unfairly will be offered a return. She looked at Mr. Walker. That includes you. He blinked hard, swallowing emotion. At the end of the meeting, a young assistant approached her. Ms. Grant, do you really think we can save this place? Emily looked around the worn room, the exhausted faces, the stacks of overdue paperwork waiting for her. Yes, she said. But it will take all of us. And for the first time since stepping foot in Boston, she felt something warm settle inside her. Not revenge. Not pride. Purpose. The next few months were the hardest of Emily's life. She rebuilt the company from the inside out, early mornings on job sites, long nights rewriting contracts, countless calls convincing vendors to give the grants one more chance. She reinstated quality checks Jason had ignored. She slashed unnecessary spending. She renegotiated timelines and repaired relationships. Every day felt like stitching together a torn fabric with hands that refused to shake. Workers who had once eyed her with doubt now greeted her with quiet respect. She rehired people Jason had fired unfairly. Dolores returned first. She hugged Emily so tightly the entire office pretended not to wipe their eyes. Jim followed next, then 2 foremen the company had lost during Jason's chaos. One by one the broken pieces came home. Jason, stripped of authority, sulked at first. He complained. He resisted. Once he slammed a door so hard a picture frame fell. But Emily no longer absorbed his noise. She assigned him to client relations only, no spending power, no operational control. If he wanted to stay, he would start from the bottom like everyone else. Slowly, painfully, the company's numbers began to stabilize. By month 4 the bleeding stopped. By month 6 they broke even. By month 9, 2 former clients returned, hesitant but willing to trust Emily's leadership. When the first profitable quarter arrived, her staff surprised her with a small celebration in the break room. Simple cake, paper plates, a handwritten card that said, "Thank you for choosing integrity." Late that evening Emily's father called. He didn't ask for anything. He simply said, voice thick with humility, "You did it, Emily. You brought us back." She closed her eyes, letting the moment settle. She didn't say, "I told you so." She only whispered, "Good night, Dad." With the company steady again, Emily faced decisions she once never imagined having the power to make. She hired a seasoned operations director, Mr. Harris, a brilliant but overlooked leader from another firm, to manage daily work in Boston. She wanted fresh eyes and someone without emotional ties to the family. "You'll have full authority over day-to-day operations," she told him. "I'll focus on strategy and rebuilding our name." Mr. Harris nodded deeply. "I won't let you down." Her parents sold the family home soon after. They moved into a smaller place closer to the center of town. When Emily visited to help them pack, she walked through the house slowly. The stairs no longer creaked. The kitchen felt smaller. Childhood memories flickered in every corner, some warm, some sharp. Her mother followed her quietly. "Emily," she whispered, "I'm sorry. For everything." Emily didn't turn around immediately. "I know," she said. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. And sometimes that was enough. Jason, though still resentful, began showing up earlier to work. Less complaining. Less arrogance. One day he approached her office door and knocked softly. "Can I run something by you?" he asked. Emily looked up, surprised. His voice wasn't defensive or proud. Just uncertain. She gestured for him to sit. They reviewed a client proposal together carefully, respectfully. When he stood to leave, he paused. "I was wrong," he muttered. "About the company, and about you." Emily didn't soften. "Then learn from it." Jason nodded. And for the first time he actually meant it. With the new systems working smoothly, Emily prepared to return to Chicago, where her own business awaited. But she paused at the office doorway, looking back at the company her grandfather built. For the first time she felt peace, not because everything was perfect, but because she had finally rewritten the ending. Emily's return to Chicago was nothing like the day she escaped Boston 2 years earlier. This time she walked through the airport with confidence instead of heartbreak. Her Chicago office felt different too, not like a refuge but like a home she had earned. Her assistants greeted her with excitement. "We followed the Boston news," one said. "You're kind of a legend." Emily laughed softly. "I'm just someone who refused to repeat old mistakes." She threw herself into new projects. Developers trusted her judgment more than ever. Her consulting company grew, gaining attention across the region. Yet every now and then she received messages from Boston, updates, small wins, and sometimes gratitude. Her father sent a picture of the company's new safety awards. Her mother texted, "We're proud of you. Truly proud." Emily didn't need their approval anymore. but she accepted the messages with a gentle heart. One evening as she looked over the Chicago skyline, her phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Harris. "We just landed another major client. Staff requested I tell you first. They said it feels like the company has its soul back." Emily closed her eyes and exhaled deeply. She wanted that more than applause, more than revenge. Later that night she sat in her office holding the old black-and-white photo of her grandfather standing beside his first construction truck. She whispered, "I hope I did right by you." And for the first time she felt the quiet certainty that he would have nodded proudly and said, "You didn't just save it, you led it." Months passed, steady and fulfilling. Emily balanced her Chicago work with strategic oversight of the Boston company. She visited quarterly, not out of obligation but purpose. Each time she walked into the Boston office, employees greeted her with genuine warmth. They didn't look at her as the daughter who left, but as the leader who restored stability, fairness, and dignity. During one visit, her father asked her to lunch. They sat at a small diner, nothing fancy, nothing like the stiff family dinners of her childhood. Over coffee he looked at her with eyes that finally saw her. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "About Jason. About you. About everything." Emily didn't rush to fill the silence. She let him sit in the truth he had avoided for years. "Thank you," she finally said. And it was enough. Jason showed growth too. Not perfect, not magically changed, but trying. He apologized again, this time properly without excuses. "You deserved better," he told her. Emily nodded. "I did. But we moved forward." And they did, not as rivals, but as siblings learning how to rebuild broken bridges. After that trip, Emily returned to Chicago with a lighter heart. She walked into her apartment, dropped her keys on the counter and breathed deeply. She had rebuilt 2 companies, Boston's and her own, and rebuilt herself along the way. She didn't need their validation. She didn't need their apology to define her worth. She had created her own life, built on strength, integrity, and resilience. And she had done it on her terms. 6 months later, Emily stood in front of a conference hall in Chicago, preparing to speak to a room full of young women in construction and engineering. The event organizers invited her not because of her last name, but because of her leadership. As she stepped on stage, applause echoed through the room. Her story of being overlooked, pushed aside, then rising stronger had quietly made its way across the industry. She told them about failure, about walking away with only a car and pride, about building a business from scratch, about returning not for revenge but responsibility. She told them about rebuilding what others broke with care, transparency, and hard work. Then she ended with words she wished someone had told her years ago. "Sometimes the family you're born into doesn't see your worth. That doesn't mean you don't have any. It just means you're meant to build something different, something that belongs to you." The audience rose in a standing ovation. Emily felt her chest warm, not with victory but with peace. After the event, as she walked outside into the cool evening air, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother. "Thank you for saving our legacy. But more than that, thank you for becoming the kind of leader this family never deserved but desperately needed." Emily typed slowly. It was never about legacy. It was about doing what's right. She slipped her phone into her bag, lifted her chin toward the city lights, and walked forward, no longer the overlooked daughter, no longer the girl craving approval, but the woman who rewrote her own story. And this time she wasn't walking away. She was walking into everything she had built. Moral lesson. True power comes the moment you stop proving your worth to people who refuse to see it and start building a life that reflects who you truly are. Loyalty means nothing without respect, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away until you can return on your own terms.